He's got 6 already. Wide open Dulkes.
Well, we circled the calendar. We're going to be Monday night and run John Jaywalk from the end.
Dulkes again.
It's the Dulkes show.
Zeller the miss.
Should duck that ball. Hey, casual. A little casual inside.
Dulkes in transition. Scoring basket. Goaltending on Zeller.
They got the best front court basketball. Zeller.
Dulkes unstoppable right now. Snare for 3.
All right, everyone, welcome to the 4th edition of the Nole Hoops Authority podcast. Eventually, I'm going to have to stop counting which edition this is because I'm going to forget. But we are coming to you following a pretty exciting week for Florida State basketball in which they won against Indiana and University of Florida. Do want to just open up by saying, the first and foremost thing here is the thoughts and prayers that we have for Keontae Johnson and his family. That was just something that was horrible to witness. Being there live, I can honestly say it was the worst thing I've seen as a spectator to sport in all the events I've ever been to. And, it hasn't been a ton of news since. We have heard today that, he was put into a medically induced coma, but it seems as if he has now been taken out of it and is responding to simple commands. So hopefully the good news continues, but we've got nothing but that on our mind. And that's, a primary concern above all the rest here is that he heals up regardless of basketball and continues to be able to live a normal life after this because from all accounts, he's a great kid and a great leader. And so we really have him on our mind and hope that he makes a speedy recovery in the next few days here.
Yeah. This is something that's bigger than basketball, bigger than sports, bigger than a UF Florida State kind of competition. And we're all hoping for the best for him and want to see some good news come out of Gainesville pretty soon in that regards.
Absolutely. So let's get into talking about the games. As tough as it is to follow up on that with talk, that's kind of how it was on Saturday. Watching the rest of that game, it was hard to really get into it. But there were definitely some things to take out of this week. That's for sure. You played 2 teams that will likely be tournament teams once we come around to March. Barring anything that derails the season, but. I think how we want to start here is going into a few players that really popped off the page this week. And with the amount of guys that Florida State plays, it'd be easy to talk about a ton. So we're going to really try to focus mainly on 4 guys here and then just do some quick hitters on some of the other guys. But Anthony, why don't you start us off talking about the guy that I honestly think has been the most impressive player for the team through 3 games and is really, really exciting in his development. What's your thoughts on Raquan Gray?
Yeah, well, it's exciting to see him play this year. He has 3 dunks through 3 games, which is almost matching what he had in 2 seasons here at Florida State. Literally jumping off the page with his statistics and his play. It's been fun to watch. It's also fun to not hear national reporters only talk about his weight. Obviously, you've been at some of the games, but watching on TV, it's finally not a talking point, and everybody's kind of talking about different players, whether that be Scotty or different guys that we have on this team now. But Raquan has taken a major step this year, and a step that we were all kind of waiting for the last few years. When was going to be the jump, and now we're finally seeing it. Just a few numbers that we can kind of go off of. His minutes have increased by 5 minutes per game, and I think that's indicative to his play. He's gone up 2 points, 2.3 points per game. He averaged 6 last year, and obviously early on here, he's averaging 8.3. He's gone up almost 10 percentage points in field goal percentage from 39.2 to 47.8. And his rebounds are something that I think should be a major talking point. He's up from 3.8 per game to 7.3. I think more than anything on Raquan's game is that it looks very smooth now. He's not necessarily turning the ball over as much as he was. He's not a dribble machine. He's not getting it in the post and trying to back somebody through the doors of the gym just with his brute force. We've seen a fluidity to it and some post moves, some scoring. I think the last thing that we need to see to truly open up his game to be a threat at every level of the game is his 3-point shooting. He's passed up on it to this point. But we've also had guys that are kind of picking it up there, whether it's Polite, whether it's MJ. It'd be nice to see if Wyatt Wilkes remembers how to shoot this year. Maybe his ego is bigger than his beard or his hair right now. But would love to see him pick it up. But if Gray can start shooting the three ball as well, I think we could see a legitimate NBA talent in him, which is something that coming into this year, I don't think we necessarily saw.
Yeah, I'll say it right now. I don't think that Raekwon Gray is going to be on Florida State's team next year. I think he is going to the draft if he keeps this up, especially if he can develop that shooting even to a 35% level or something like that. He's definitely going. I'm not saying he's going to be a first rounder, but if that kid can get himself into the second round after this season, he will go to the draft because he's 21 years old already. And I think he should. And I think we are going to see that happen. So it's exciting stuff. His hands on defense is absolutely nuts. And then he's also a guy, one thing I noticed is one complaint I have with this team is sometimes they seem timid in the way that they go to the basket. You know, they'll get to the basket and then kind of shoot fading away or try to pull a move at the last second and not just go straight to the hoop, despite the fact that they're bigger than everyone they face. The one guy on the team who never has an issue with that is Gray. When he's going to that hoop, he's going. And that's something that we need because when he starts doing that, the rest of the guys start to gain confidence. So I can only say great things about him. And I think you summed it up pretty well statistically. Really exciting stuff to come from him. Next, let's talk about MJ. I'll lead off on this one and say that obviously, you know, MJ is our leader. He is the rock for this team. And, you know, it's been interesting watching him play. And I think what was really interesting to me is that it was a completely different experience seeing him live as watching on TV. And I don't know if he was doing anything different, but my perception of the way he was playing, I'll be honest, was not as high as what I saw in the UNF game when I was watching him live. And what I mean by that is that at points in the game, he seems to kind of just float around and he's out there. Obviously, that's never the case on defense. He's an elite defender. Maybe once in the UF game, I saw him have a lapse, but other than that, he's always elite. But on offense, he kind of floats at times and just disappears from the flow of the offense, and then also gets a little bit confused in ISO. But he always does figure it out. So whether it was making a huge shot against Indiana late in regulation or against UF getting himself to the line 12 times and making all 12, you know, that is what this team needs to move forward. They need him to be that elite type presence. I think he's still figuring out. And if I remember correctly, at the beginning of last season, I thought similar things about Trent Forrest. Like, why is he just kind of floating around out there, not taking control? We need more from Trent. I think that when you are the unquestioned leader, you've kind of got to take that time to take a step back, assess what everybody else is doing. And that's what we're seeing from MJ. So I think we'll see that get a little bit more polished by the end, but there's nothing to complain about with him from a statistical perspective. The dude's doing everything you could possibly ask for. I looked up, midway through the second half and I was like, man, we're not even getting points from MJ and we're up by this much. And by the end of the game, he had 17 on the scoreboard. So, you know, it's like he is our guy and he's the leader. I think it's just going to get more fluid with him as the team as a whole gets more fluid.
Yeah, and Ham kind of said that after the game. They've thrown a lot more responsibility and leadership onto his shoulders this year, and they're taking their time easing him in as far as like offensive sets go. But we see it game in and game out when we're getting to a point where there's a fork in the road, he's taking it, right? And what I mean in taking it, and in an old Yogi Berra saying, is that he's taking the shot, he's taking the ball, and he's taking the responsibility. There's been a few times, both in the Indiana game and in the Florida game, where things got a little shaky, and MJ kind of stepped up either with a big three. We had three dunk of the year candidates in the UF game alone. He pulled the AI step over after his dunk. That was mean. I wish there was a full crowd, because I think that would have been something that shook the entire gym. With that said, what was there, 3,000 people there or so, and the cameraman was still shaking. I think that's just because he couldn't hold on to the camera, but neither here nor there. The camera was shaking after that dunk, and that's what we want to see, and that's what we're seeing from MJ. He is taking that next step as the leader of this team. Without Trent here, he's the one that everyone is looking to, and then when he makes that statement play, again, it's a confidence thing for everyone else because they're starting to pop off right after.
Absolutely. All right, let's get to another guy that early on here has looked like he has taken the next step and is definitely looking like he's probably going to have, probably not next year, but at some point, NBA potential. Why don't you talk about Balsa for a second here?
Yeah, Balsa Koprivica, one of my favorite players on this team and one of the favorite players of every announcer for any ACC game and Florida State game. Major jump this year, not only in usage, but skill. We're seeing a fluid offensive game, jump shots from the top of the key, some hook shots, some up and unders, and being able to kind of sprint off a screen and be open for a dunk. We've seen some great passes to him and also some soft hands on his end to throw it down after receiving those passes. And I think we're seeing more out of him because we need more out of him, but also his usage has gone up pretty significantly. He was only averaging 10 minutes a game last year. This year, he's averaging 8.4. We don't have Dom on the team this year. We don't have Williams on the team this year. Those were the guys eating up those minutes, and we had Malik at the 5 a lot last year. We're starting to push Malik a little bit to the 4, and I like that. His shooting is improving, and he's extending the ball. So you could play Balsa at the 5 and Malik at the 4. The only thing we need to see an uptick right now from Balsa is his shooting percentage. Obviously, I think that comes with more opportunities, more around the basket, more putbacks, but he's doubled his rebounds in a year. He went from 2.4 per game to 5.3 per game, and he's playing a lot bigger than he did last year. I think at times he played a little bit soft. That comes with being a freshman in the ACC, going against some of the big dogs, but he's had some fierce competition thus far. You saw what Indiana did to him. They have 2 6'8" guys that they play at center and they throw bodies around. And when he was in the game, he kind of dominated that game. He got into some foul trouble in that game. I think in both of the beginning of each half, we saw some pretty early whistles. And it got him into a little bit of trouble for playing physical down low. But once he settles in, man, he's been a major improvement, and I'm excited for what his ceiling could be another year under Stan Jones, and we could be seeing a potential first-round pick.
Yeah, and one thing that's super encouraging is he just does not look intimidated out there. He looks like he's ready to go up against whoever it is. And, we'll get to Georgia Tech in a second here, but there's going to be a couple teams where you face a good big man. And obviously you've got those in the UVAs, the North Carolinas, even potentially Duke, but who knows with that team. He's going to need to be fierce against some of these ACC teams. And it was really encouraging for him early on to take those punches per se from guys like Trace Jackson Davis and continue to punch back, even if it meant him fouling out. Super encouraging to see. So I'm really excited for what we can get from him the rest of the season. Against UF, he was not nearly as impressive as Indiana, but there was still that stretch of about 4 minutes where he dunked it 4 times in a row.
Yeah, I think he had like 6 points in like a 2-minute stretch. It was It's impressive to see because we didn't see that last year. We didn't say I don't think there was a point last year where we went like, oh man, Balsa could really carry us tonight. Yeah. And now we've seen at least through 3 games, like he can carry us for a full night if we need him to. So very encouraging. I love it. I'm here for it.
Yeah. Other than a couple nifty passes last year, you're right. We never saw that from him. And without him against Indiana, that's likely a double-digit loss. So, it's definitely impressive stuff. All right, final guy we want to highlight, and obviously this is probably the biggest guy to highlight throughout the year, and that is Scotty Barnes. It certainly wasn't all, wonderful, smelling the roses this week with Scotty, but I'll say it, after watching him in person and just watching him in general, I think people who have locked in Cade Cunningham as the number 1 overall pick are a little bit nuts. This dude is a different animal in terms of not only competitive spirit, but also just pure athletic ability. It's like nothing I've ever seen, certainly at Florida State, but seldom have seen at the college level. It's really incredible. And, for most of that Indiana game, he was pretty bad. Like there wasn't a lot redeeming going on, although he wasn't turning the ball over, which is always good for a 6'9" point guard. He's had 5 assists every single game and has turned the ball over, twice at most, I believe. And so that's super encouraging. But overall, he was pretty lackluster from every other perspective besides defensively, where he's always going to be elite. But then we get to overtime, and a kid who really, for all intents and purposes, cannot shoot the 3 ball, takes the ice water in the veins 3 shot, nothing but net.
NBA 3. NBA, that was deep.
To bring it even. And that was to me, that was a bigger shot than the game winner. That was just, that shows like, I'm going to carry this team when it needs to be carried. And I don't care what anybody says. And so for him to then follow that up by actually winning the game, what was awesome. And it was incredibly great to see that he had that in him. And then in the post-game presser beyond that, they asked him like, how do you feel about that? With hitting a game-winning shot? And he basically said like, I don't care. Just like, we won. That's all that matters. Like the dude is just a cold-blooded killer, and that variety of that mentality to have that type of shot and not be, overly excited about it. He just said, we won the game and that's it. But then against UF, you really saw flashes of what it could be. And we only saw it for really short periods of time, but that stretch at the end of the first half, obviously catching a body on that dunk was ridiculous. And I felt really bad for UF, as you mentioned, after what had happened, and then to catch 3 bodies like that, that's an unfortunate sequence of events. And, but to follow that up with right after that, go down and get the and one, and really just take over the game for that short stretch. If we see him play with confidence to continue to do that, to be able to every time know like, hey, if I just drive the hoop, there's no one in the country who can guard me, because that's true. If he goes to the bucket with intensity and confidence, there's nobody who can guard him.
No,
and even
he's too big.
Yeah,
he's too big and too strong and too fast.
Even if he's only hitting 60% of his free throws, I don't care. Have him do it. Every time down the court, if he sees a guy that's an inferior matchup, go to the hoop. Because eventually what we're going to see happening is the same thing we saw with Balsa, where he had those 3 straight dunks where they're going to be sliding 2 guys, and he's going to be able to kick it or kick it back out. I mean, we haven't even seen that element yet, and it's going to get there. This kid is scary good. And if he can play like that consistently, I don't think there's more than 2 teams in the country that can beat Florida State on any given night, consistently, if he plays up to his ability. And I truly think he might be the best player in college basketball.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen 3 games from him, and we're like gushing over him, and I don't think it's unjustified. The Indiana game was over as soon as he hit that 3. That was an ice in the veins 3. That was a breaking point in that game too, where it could have kind of gone either way in OT. And he kind of said, no, this is mine. No, and then you knew as he was driving down the court for the final shot that was going to go in no matter what. It was just like a silent confidence, because even if it had gone to double OT there, I think like we had built enough momentum to kind of take off. And in the Florida game, I mean, to have the confidence to not only to put some dudes on the floor, but to do like dances right after. He did the stiff man walk down the court, the first one, and it was flat out just like dancing with not only was he dancing, everyone on the court was dancing with him, and the entire bench was dancing. This is a team that's starting to have fun, to starting to get comfortable, and going to start to be very dangerous.
I thought that was a timeout after he caught that second body.
Nope,
because him and Malik were dancing and they were so in sync. I was like, oh, timeout. And they were still playing basketball.
Yeah, they started to run down the court after. So funny to watch, but also exciting to see. We saw within a 3-game span this kid become a man, I think, in my eyes. He grew up very fast. And I think if we continue to see this, I don't want to say we're going to walk through the ACC, but I don't think there's anybody in the ACC that can guard him.
Well, Kihei Clark certainly can. That's the thing is, we'll move to Georgia Tech in just 1 second here, but if he's playing that way, if he just takes it over, even if he doesn't take it over for more than 5 minutes a game, we saw that he could put up 10, 12, 14 points in 5 minutes easily without even playing at his peak ability. It's got to be scary for the rest of the country to watch that with the rest of the size on the court at that same time and a senior leader like MJ. Nothing but encouraging things from the team. Quick hitters, just a couple players to highlight. I think Anthony Polite has been incredibly impressive. Still is probably the best defender on this team, although Scotty certainly is impressive.
1A, 1B.
Yeah, but I mean, Polite is a lockdown, in-your-face defender, and then is really hitting the three well and is showing the ability to be really smart in his role and execute really well. And I can't speak highly enough of how he has played. And then one other guy I was really impressed with, particularly against Florida, was Tanner Nagam. I think that we finally saw him actually have the potential to maybe be that backup to Balsa and really get some solid minutes. I know his conditioning needs work and everything, but against Trace Jackson Davis, he didn't have it. But when he's playing some of these guys that are not quite to that level, we saw him catch the ball, dominate down low, and he's another guy that comes in at 7'1" and can shoot the free throw above 80%. So that's an encouraging thing, and I was really happy to see him get 6 minutes in that game, and I think that's only going to increase going forward.
I agree. I think Tanner showed a lot in the Florida game. Obviously, some inferior competition compared to Trace Jackson Davis over at Indiana and Race Thompson as well. But we saw what he could do and what he will be doing as he gets more conditioning, gets in game shape, and is ready to go. You spoke on his free throws. It's good that he's hitting them because the team is not. And if we want to be as aggressive as Ham normally is with the offense, we're flying down the court, driving and trying to pick up those fouls and get teams in foul trouble, we're going to need to shoot better overall as a team. But encouraging signs getting to the line, encouraging signs from Tanner, and encouraging signs from Polite. Polite's starting to hit that corner three and that wing three pretty consistently. And if he does that, the entire court opened it up. It really does.
Yeah. And I want to move on. I think we all want to see Sadar get some more minutes. I think that it was a little bit deceiving against UF. I think that was a really bad matchup for him because their guards are so elite. I think that, we'll see him get there. He definitely, against UF when he wasn't there, was way over aggressive and way over excited. So I can see where Ham kind of gets a little bit hesitant, but I think we all know that he's going to be an important part for our depth going forward. And hopefully eventually him and Wyatt Wilkes switch the amount of minutes that they're getting because I think,
and pure speculation here on my end, but you saw in a few of the dead moments during the game, a few of the teammates came over to Dar and he would ask questions about where he was supposed to be defensively. And then you could visibly see him say, "My bad," after. As we go through some games and that adjusts and he starts to figure out where he's going to be, I think we'll see more minutes because he is kind of a walking bucket. There is volume shots there, understandably so, but if those shots are going in, I don't think anyone's going to complain.
Yeah. So just very quickly, as far as takeaways from the Indiana game, obviously, I don't think we played very well. We were sloppy. I think that it was pretty clear who the better team on the court was, and it was not Indiana. Trace Jackson Davis is the real deal. That dude flat dominated us, and I thought we played him pretty well. As far as our abilities go, he still had, I believe it was 25 and 17, and he's going to be a problem for almost every single team he faces. But to still pull that out, to have Scotty gain the confidence he did, give it to me 10 times out of 10. I'd almost prefer that to a blowout win because we needed that type of thing early in the season, especially to get Scotty that confidence was huge. Anything else you took away from that Indiana game?
No, I 100% agree. I think this could have been a blowout win if we didn't shoot 50% from free throw. I mean, we were there. I had predicted a double-digit win, and I was obviously wrong, but I don't think I would have been if we shot the ball a little bit better. We're going to get to the line. This is very uncharacteristic for a Ham team. Normally it's spot on free throws. Like that's a key to his teams. So I'm sure this is a talking point at practice and we'll see an improvement, but no, good game. Jackson Davis, all he needs to do is learn how to stretch it out a little bit, and he's going to be dangerous not only in college, but he's going to be a pro, and he's going to be a very good pro. Reminds me kind of like a little bit of like Obi Toppin without the shooting, a little bit of Julius Randle, plays that bully ball down low. He just step out a little bit, work on those jump shots, and you're an early first round pick. He's a player, man. He's awesome.
For sure. For sure. And then against UF, it's really tough because I do think, obviously, those kids were devastated after what happened to Keontae Johnson, and rightfully so. And, Ham obviously gave them the option not to continue in the game. I watched them come out to midcourt. I don't know if this is something they showed on TV, but they met as a team and they decided to keep playing at that moment. And all reports say at halftime, the kids indicated they wanted to play still. But obviously that affects them mentally. And Keontae Johnson is the best player in the SEC, not only on the Gators. That would be like Florida State losing MJ Walker and more. He is their best player ability-wise, and he is, an incredible leader for that team. So that obviously disrupts the flow. Not to mention Trey Mann picks up 3 fouls in the first half. He's actually who I think, other than Scotty Lewis, who played an incredible game, maybe their best NBA prospect. So I think they had some things go against them. But with the team that was on the court, the way how it worked out, Scotty Lewis playing pretty much the best he possibly could have played, that still could have been a 30-point game if Florida State decides to pour it on at certain points and keep the foot on the gas. That was not real close. I personally think that it's very close with Keontae Johnson, but Florida State still ends up winning that game. It just seems like it took some time to figure out what we needed to do and how we were going to go against this defense that was playing really elite at the beginning and played pretty well throughout. It's just we just overpowered them. And so I think that to do that against a Gator team that even without Keontae Johnson is one of the 5 most talented teams we're going to face all year is incredibly encouraging. And it just shows how developed this team is beyond where they could be at this point.
Yeah, no, I would agree. At this point, I had us 2-1, and to see us here 3-0 entering some ACC play is huge. I had Florida as our first loss, and obviously with some extenuating circumstances, with Johnson going down and kind of them sputtering a little bit offensively after he did go down. We take that dub, but I think you're right. I think we would have taken that dub either way. We started to figure it out early in the game. Was a little sloppy, some turnovers, some missed opportunities on the offensive end and lapses on the defensive end. Things started to work itself out and the team looked much more cohesive in the middle part of that first half. And then from then on, there was no looking back. It was just, honestly, it was kind of like we dominated them again.
Yeah, again. So once again, hopefully speedy recovery to Keontae Johnson. We're just really praying that everything works out for him and that he can make a full recovery. That's the utmost concern right now. But looking forward to what Florida State has upcoming. We'll probably get back on here before the UCF game on Saturday, but tomorrow we've got a game against Georgia Tech. Florida State is, I believe right now, about an 8.5-point favorite at home in that game. Just a quick couple sentences. There's not a lot to say about this Georgia Tech team in terms of what they offer as a challenge to Florida State. And that's coming from the guy who in our preseason predicted them to beat us. Georgia Tech then went out, lost in 4 overtimes to Georgia State, which would have been okay, except that they then followed that up with a 10-point loss to Mercer, which is completely unacceptable. They since have beaten a really horrifically bad at this point in the season Kentucky team by quite a few points, and then went out and beat another pretty horrifically bad team in Nebraska by double digits. But this is a team that has not been performing up to the level that they should be from a shooting perspective. The guys to look out for on that Georgia Tech team are Alvarado. He's their point guard. He's what makes everything work for that team. And then also you've got DeVoe. Those are 2 guys who are supposed to shoot extremely well and have historically been great shooters at the guard position for them. but have not done so yet this year. Alvarado is shooting, I believe, at 33%, while DeVoe is shooting at under 30. That's not to say that they're going to do that against Florida State. I think that starts to recover, especially because teams do typically shoot relatively well in Tallahassee. Their guy who has really exploded on the scene this year and is a problem for everyone he's faced so far is Moses Wright. He's their big man. Once again, he's a 6'9" big man. So the size disparity in this game is going to be pretty ridiculous. The guys they run out there, Alvarado's right at 6 foot. Bubba Parham is not even 5'10". He's a transfer VMI who came in to be able to shoot and light it up, and then just has not shot very well in the past last year or this year so far. I just don't see how Georgia Tech's size can match up with what Florida State's going to throw out there in the court with Scotty and then Gray. And, there is always a chance, obviously, with the way that this team can shoot, that if they come in and start lighting up the gym and have a game like we saw them do to us when Isaac was here, where they're just not missing and we're just off all sorts and we come in overconfident, sure, we could lose, but it's going to take some pretty horrific performances on our end, and it's going to take some pretty otherworldly performances on their end, in my opinion. Do you agree with that?
I would wholeheartedly agree. I think you're in a little bit of trouble when your center is the same size as our point guard. With that said, they kind of go really only like 7 deep through their lineup. They have 9 guys or so play, but if they get into any kind of foul trouble, this is going to be bad news for them, and bad news to come into Tallahassee after our team is kind of starting to come together as a unit, play well offensively, and one of the top freshmen in the country is now starting to play with confidence. I think that's a bad mix for a team that's coming off of 2 wins against inferior opponents. Like you said, one of the worst Kentucky teams of all times, and coming off 2 losses to significantly inferior opponents. So, 8.5 point spread, I'm going to take the over here for the Seminoles. I think that's a double-digit win, but I've said that previously and been wrong, but I feel more confident than this in this Georgia Tech win for Florida State than I did against that Indiana team. And we took it to overtime there, but we could have won by a lot more.
Yeah, you know what? I'll say that we don't cover that spread, but I do think we win. So I think that we are going to see Alvarado and DeVoe shoot better in this game. And I think there's going to be points where we may even be down in this game, but I think we pretty quickly get it back to a comfortable distance. I think this is hopefully where Moses Wright can come back to earth a little bit. He's averaging 21 and 10, and I would like to see that not happen against Florida State. However, even if he does hit that level, I think we're in a pretty good place. And so, I feel pretty good about this game, and I'll go with a 6-point win. Let's say 80-74. What's your score prediction?
80-74 sounds good, but I'm going to go 88-76.
Okay, so you're going 12. All right, cool. Well, like I said, we're going to try to hop back on here prior to that UCF game on Saturday. But this is an exciting time for Florida State basketball, and we are really pumped to see another week of hoops. Hopefully, we keep getting hoops on the schedule. We got to cherish every game we've got because we don't know how long it's going to last. And finally, we've said it a few times, but say it again. Really, thoughts and prayers with Keontae Johnson. That's the most important thing right now. But other than that, go Noles, and we'll talk to you all soon.
Go Noles.